for now. Beautiful. All right, we got us all together. As I say, this won't be a super long meeting, but I wanted to just go over a couple of things. Obviously, add anything that you can think of for the agenda, but the top ones for the agenda for today are just, we want to make sure we still do the asset map, do a Google Forms to see what talents we can bring to bear that people have already to the effort. We want to make sure that the work plan, the Reach Allies work plan, is distributed to as many people as possible. And then the third thing for tonight is to see if we can start locking in or see what's necessary to lock in a date for doing the actual workshop that we did a demo of last time we got together. So those are the three top things I could think of. Just want to see where we are on each of these things. Obviously, if there's something I've missed or you need to add or whatever, of course, we're totally open at our meetings. Just wanted to put those out there for the core agenda. Does that sound okay?
Yeah.
Yes, David.
So I just share the Google Forms with you, link with everyone on the chat box, David.
Oh,
I just kind of discussed it with like a very few preliminary questions. I'm going to share the allies email list with you for all the people who are going to attend the first workshop, which is tentatively going to be scheduled in the first half of November. I have not yet got a committed date. As you understand, Kachina might be able to tell you that we are going through some, some changes with respect to structuring, with respect to the FCRA regulations newly passed in the country. Mm-hmm. So we are kind of figuring that set up and to see, how this workshop can be best placed for the ongoing implementation ahead, because the implementation structure might have some changes with just respect to some, logistics. It's not going to affect the program or the project in any way with respect to the outcomes or with respect to the processes later, but who and where and when might, just between not the how part. So if you can, if you guys can just give a feedback on the Google Forms and it's 5 questions, and can just tell me that you need something more from the participants, that would be great for me. And then I can move on to some sort of project orientation with you guys. And it's quite some slides, but I can just walk through. I realized that the work plan that has been approved in a year 2, it just came to us, and the other thing was that to condense that work plan into something that is doable for this workshop, and for us to be on the same page with respect to what from the work plan should we take forward to the workshop. I thought that it is best to go through a small presentation, which is basically something we had prepared already. I have put together pieces from different presentations, and then kind of agree on what the content of that first workshop should be, or with respect to when we are talking about the goal setting, and as Kachina keeps on saying, what are the common sort of project objectives and outcomes and outputs that we're going to talk about as a priority for the national team and then the state teams and so on. So, and that's where I think, this should be the first stage of brainstorming. I don't expect that we'll come to a conclusion at the end of the call today, but let's get started at least to see where we can end.
That sounds good. When you're talking about, do you want to do a presentation? Do you want to do it previous to the workshop or along with it, or give me more information as to what you'd like to do? I'm totally flexible. I just want to get a better feel, Rahul, with what you have to do.
It's not such a formal presentation, David. It's just a discussion with this team, because the last time I know that we talked about sharing the annual work plan and what we are doing as an allies project, so that this team completely is together with respect to what outputs and outcomes we are expecting from the allies project and what we want to discuss today. Now I'm just going to, as a discussion, I'm just going to take the help of some slides. It's not like a presentation. Okay. It's a group discussion with this, and the more you guys ask me, it's also going to be clarity for me with respect to pitching the empowerment evaluation with respect to those outputs and outcomes, and then also structuring the workshop in the same way, right? You have the methodology of the workshop, but when we talk about the content and the goal setting and the things that you are walking us through, so that we are all on the same page that way. Does that sound a good idea?
Yeah. Excellent idea. No, excellent. No, beautiful. I just want to get a feel for how you want to make it flow into it. I think it's excellent. I think it's like Kachina was talking about last time. it helps set expectations if we're all looking for what can we do within what we're already held accountable for. And that's beautiful. So it's just a question of timing as to when you want to do it. And then, of course, when things are aligned sufficiently and settled enough in reach, you think mid-November, early November, is that what it sounds like so far, to be able to maybe to do both of these kinds of things?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
November sounds fine.
Okay,
I think by
cool.
mid-November we should be ready. So I am expecting one more preparation call, like with this group,
Sure.
which should be first week of November, and then we should be ready to go.
Wonderful, wonderful. That's fantastic. That's great. Yep, that's a beautiful timeline. That's excellent. And thanks for doing the prep work on that, because we don't want to have just it scheduled and not within the context of what you need. It should be within the context of what you know is going to be reasonable, fits in with the changes going on. So, you know, you're sort of a lifeline to make sure that we're doing this in a way that's going to be meaningful and appropriate for the group. So it's great.
I don't want to jump the gun out here, but David, let me just give you some sort of insights from what the team nationally, the leadership team and the senior management team, their expectations from empowerment evaluation. I think they're still struggling with the idea and the methodology, and it's not to blame them. It's very new for them too.
Sure.
I mean, we as a work plan, and Kachina has seen our work plan, and she sees it every quarter. Our overall goal is to create an empowered cadre of community advocates, right?
Yeah.
And we throw in terms like, you know, gender sensitive, rights appropriate, and all towards centered around this quality of care and quality of services of TB treatment, which is something which has been an unicorn in the TB world. Everyone talks about it, but nobody knows what it is exactly when it comes to people, because quality of care and quality of services is something like that, but it differs from, you know, context and geography and so on. Right. And the quality of services respect the service side, the health system side has come up this March. The Central TB Division in India, they came up with a list of indicators, but mostly which is from the health system side. So the turnaround time for a, you know, universal drug sensitivity test, or the amount of out-of-pocket expenditure and stuff like that, which they have not. They proposed those indicators. They have not proposed any standard operating protocols for those indicators. We are saying that not only those indicators matter, but also a set of other indicators. For example, did you have dignified care? Was there someone to listen to you? Were you given the psychosocial support? Or, you know, were you given the confidentiality treatment that you deserve? Because notification is now a legal requirement in this country. But notification shouldn't mean that it should cross your, you know, privacy limits. And that awareness should be in the community of the affected TB people. So we are saying that, okay, you have given us this set of quality of services. We are going to keep this, but also stretch it beyond to come to quality of care and so on, and overall a bigger picture, right? So coming back to what the leadership was saying, for them it is, you know, they see empowerment evaluation as an evaluation of the TB champions, as an empowered cadre. So how, if I wanted to say, if you think of in the US context, you know, supposedly a community college, right? For in the Indian context, it will be something of a, say, a PG diploma course or something which is not a degree course, right? Once you start from that and you end the community college, you're taking too many breaks in between because you have a job, you have so many other stuff to do, right? But you have been a survivor of TB for the TB champions, so on. You went through a workshop, you went through a hands-on exercise. Workshop meaning the workshop was a fully structured training of 6 modules, which is now published by CTT. And we are adding on a 7th module in this project, which is based on quality of care and quality of services, which we are calling the Community Accountability Framework. And that 7th module will basically transform the survivors to the champions they were from module 1 to 6, but also experts on quality of care and services. So it's like an added specialized course. And USAID has given us this flexibility to experiment with this particular cadre, a specialized cadre, to see how much we can drive the narrative through the loan grant towards quality of care and quality of services in the TB world, right? Now, this specialized cadre for the leadership is very special, right? Because They have been there for ages. Some of them are new, some of them are old. Uh, there are new people coming on, taking in this module 1 to 6. There are older people who are already trained and now taking on module 7.
Mhm.
And all of them will now be attached to this particular TB treatment units, and they will be navigating around the community and the facility, acting as a linkage to see what, we do not want to call it a feedback call, or like they will be based out of facility. So what is a day in the life of a TB champion look like? So he perhaps has a full-time job or a part-time job in a shop.
Yeah.
He assists a grocery store, okay?
Mhm.
But in the morning on Mondays and Wednesdays, he walks up to the facility or the whatever the treatment unit is. It may not be a district hospital or a very high level secondary hospital, or it may not be a primary healthcare center, somewhere in between, a secondary tertiary sort of hospital. He goes there, sits in the OPD, and he sees a crowd of people with presumptive TB walking in, and he gives them, sort of helps them to navigate within the system, the OPD, who is the cardiologist, who is the pulmonologist, and who is the sort. And once he does that, they come back with certain requirements of tests, or somebody comes back with test reports, and he's out there as sort of a, feedback person, like,
Yeah.
so did you get what you needed? Or this is what the checklist should have been, you had been given. Were you given all this? So this much. And then if the person says, I have not, then he follows up with the facility staff to say, now the catch here is that we are doing empowerment evaluation in a project focused mostly with the TB champions.
Mhm.
We are leaving out the more crucial part of the health workers. It's not that we are leaving it out. There is particular, curriculum which is designed for them too.
Mhm.
But we do anticipate that this friction of health workers, and because nobody likes to have feedback, specifically in a country like India, if you go and tell them you're not doing your work well, they're like, you come and do our work and see 1,000 people a day, then give us feedback for what you want. And so that tension will be there, and we need to navigate that tension.
Yeah.
But this person will not only give feedback to the facility person, but also take phone numbers, and we are working towards a digital solution
Mhm.
where these people will have community follow-ups too. Because the NTP program in India also has mandated home visits, mandated psychosocial support, mandated contact tracing. If you have a child under 6 years in your household, you are supposed to give that child prophylaxis if someone is an adult in the household has TB. So all those factors need to be ranged in within this person. And to be very honest, one senior treatment supervisor, it is impossible in this particular times to do all that. Even telephonic counseling is something new for them, right? So navigating, so we do not see this as a fault finding mission, but as anticipatory support voluntary system, which adds on, and this is very, very clear that this should not come across as an antagonistic way that we are here to change the way TB units function. Rather, we are here to improve the way TB units function.
Yes.
That's the basic theme of the project. Having said that, what the leadership wants is to understand how these TB champions, they are survivors, they're common people, right? They're just like given the 8th pass, 9th pass, they're given some training in the local language, 6, 7, and they're working, and they have a mentor in the district strategist. A district strategist will have, I will give you the organogram. A district strategist will have, say, around 7 to 8 TB champions working for him, and he meets them on a monthly basis. So this all seems very rosy, but wait till we come to the reporting part of the USA. It becomes a bit more different there, right?
Yeah.
But I don't want to get into that right now. That is, so what right now matters as an overall goal is how much these TB champions can do their work.
Yeah.
I mean, how much empowered in that sense they are to go and speak up to our facility member and say, okay, this piece of information should have been given to the patient, but he is missing it. And it is not just one patient. There have been 10 patients today who came up to me and said, and he has that, interface. And that interface should come to the TB champion, not in a way that I am going to find your fault and hold you at stake, but rather saying, this needs to happen, because if this information doesn't go out to him, there is going to be more chances of spread and all.
Yeah.
So that empowerment is what the leadership wants to measure.
Yeah.
And I have been, I mean, I understand and relate to their question, but at the end of the day, I would leave it up to this group to decide, how we go about that measurement of empowerment. Because what we are currently doing is, as a process, seeing, how it functions, how the processes we put up are going to function. But when we go on to say that what empowers the TB champions, can be boiled down to certain things.
It's very doable, very doable. Write that down as one of the objectives, because when we get from mission to taking stock to planning for the future, one of the things that we will be putting there probably is something about empowering some of the TB champions. What you just said becomes one of the strategies, which could be surveying them, could be interviewing them. It could be also a strategy would be an educational intervention for other healthcare providers, so they don't take this as you're doing a bad job, your fault, etc., but more as a team to see and refine and be honest and open about what's falling through the cracks, so that we can all tackle this together. So those could be strategies. What you're saying is beautiful. It fits in once we've gone through sort of a consensus on where we're all trying to go for the mission within the context of what we already have. And they assessed and argued about what's working. One of the things that will come up is exactly that, I'm sure, which is that the TB champions don't feel necessarily comfortable or empowered, or not feeling that they're heard. And why are they not heard? Well, then we'll talk about that and get from them. And as we hear the mechanics, the specifics of what's not working, we move into how do we improve that? And then we come up with strategies that are targeted towards what they said was a problem. It could be a communication problem. It could be how we share the information, maybe the way in which it's communicated. I don't know what's going to come out. Usually it's that type of thing, as well as helping maybe prepare and have presentations for healthcare providers so they can be more receptive and understanding that this is not a critique of fault. It's only because we all care that we want it to work. And this doesn't seem to be happening. And there could be a hole in the system, in the communication system. Let's see if we can plug that or work around it or whatever. So my quick response is, what you're saying is excellent, and it will come out in the future. That's where we'll ask about how do we improve that relationship or that role. But instead of us guessing what it would be, the whole group would be in there saying what they think is wrong and not working. And then that gives us an idea of exactly what the strategy should be to improve it. Because we can all come up with great ideas right now, sitting together and be pretty close, but we won't be on target as much as having folks that are right in there, as well as TB champions speaking their minds about what's working and not working.
Yeah, this is where the catch comes. Kachina, do you want to come in over here? With respect to TB champions are not going to be part of the first workshop.
Okay.
And a group that is going to be there is actually 2 layers separated from the TB champions. So it's going to be the state program managers and the national program managers, the team.
Yeah.
After that, there will be the district strategists, and the district strategists will be meeting the TB champions. So this is going to be a cascade thing, right?
Yeah.
So I'm getting the TB champions together on a platform. I've been on calls like that. And it's brilliant. I can see this happening, but this has to happen in a routine way for the project and has to be led by the district strategists. It cannot be the national team or the project team calling them up because now we are at 208 TB champions across 95 treatment units in 12 districts.
Wow.
Now, can you imagine meeting 208 TB champions every month?
Oh, yeah. No, but what we could do, I mean, is a couple of layers. This is very helpful. We could actually have some TB champions, a handful, attend some of these sessions right off the bat. We don't have to, but I'm just saying that's actually very possible. Not a gigantic number or representative, just a sample of folks who might want to come to the national, state, etc. Now, if folks are not open to that, no problem. The other option usually is when we go through one, for example, at a national meeting, and there aren't any individuals that are, in this case, TB champions, always what's going to come out of it is that we probably should interview or survey TB champions, right? Because we have to get, everyone's going to want their input. So then you get it that way, if they're not directly involved. For me, if I can get folks involved directly, it just saves time because they are vocal. They'll give their opinion of what's working, not working, and people will listen because they know they have the credibility. They're doing the work. I understand at the same time, people saving face. I know politics, organizational dynamics, that maybe they don't want them there at that first meeting. Fine. What will come out of it is, as I say, interviewing or surveying them and saying, and then highlighting in a presentation at the meetings, the national or state, what were your findings? What were the insights of the TB champions about what's working and not working? So my long answer is that we can either get it quicker by them being included, or it might take a little bit longer, but not much, to do, if it's more comfortable for folks, to do a survey or interview and then bring that to the group. So either way is fine. You'll know the comfort level or discomfort level.
I totally agree. Getting the TB champions in the workshop is a great idea, but at the end of the day, when we break down the project objectives for the national managers and for that leadership team,
Yeah.
they being in that call, I mean, that alignment is a very difficult call to make, right? Like, because for them, it's the day-to-day work, and we are aggregating it to an extent. We are putting in so many, aggregators that for us, it's something very different.
Yes, yes.
It uses the this thing, though it should not ideally, but it is. That happens in all projects, right?
I understand. Here's why, and as I say, I can work either way, but one of the advantages of having it become purposely disruptive is that it forces TB champions to learn about the national and state politics and concerns and issues and where their minds are. It forces the folks on the national level to hear on a local level, as mundane as it might be, and not detailed about the big policy issues, what the local concerns are. Let me just mention why this, but once again, we'll go with your lead on that, what you think is going to be appropriate. But let me explain. Remember, I mentioned I've done a project with breast cancer screening many years ago in Newfoundland. The doctors I worked with had a beautiful system, fantastic management information system for it, great machinery, tons of money for data processing, etc. However, they didn't want any of the actual women who might come and get the breast cancer screening to come to the early meetings. They were a little embarrassed because it was not ready yet. However, one or two ended up showing up for a variety of reasons. And one of them said, this all sounds wonderful, but we don't have bus fare to get here or childcare to get. So if the physicians hadn't heard that, this entire elaborate system, which was fantastic, would have failed because they hadn't thought of the day-to-day details. So my point in telling that story briefly is that that's why I would advocate, if possible, I understand if it's not possible, it's okay, to get some of the TB champions, even where they feel maybe uncomfortable in the national meeting, to briefly have some input on what they see as the day-to-day successes and obstacles. Once again, if it's not, I'm just saying that that's because when I've done this, I've short-circuited a lot of problems and not had people built on a faulty foundation. But if that's not possible for whatever variety of reasons, that's okay too. We just get it, as I said before, by getting it with surveys or interviews afterwards, but with a presentation of those views, and maybe by a TB champion at another one of the meetings. So help us think about that as to what you think is politically possible, and we'll go with whatever works.
It's not impossible, David, but we have to also think about the language barriers. I know there are a couple of them who speak English, but we also have to see whether they are from the project states. Because I definitely know there's a TB champion from Bihar who speaks quite good English. Actually, both of them are from Bihar. But for our states, we have to find out. Because otherwise, if we are speaking local languages, Hindi is also not the first language for so many of us at the national team, right?
Right.
So,
We've run into that in Brazil and Portugal and other countries where we've had folks help take care of the translation for local dialects, et cetera. Same thing in the Native American reservations. We worked in tribes. So the bottom line is, when it's possible, you get somebody to help do the translation, someone who's comfortable. Also, as a TB champion, even if it's not speaking Hindi or whatever. If you can't, we fall back on a second alternative approach to getting the same information. There's no absolute one way to go.
Mm.
When we can work it out, the ideal is, of course, to have a local representative, even if it's not going to be their language or dialect or whatever the case may be, and we get someone to help be a broker and translate. And not always perfectly either. I mean, we have multiple languages here in the States where we need to get translators to help us out. And it doesn't always work perfectly, I'll be honest, but it helps because people are also afraid. It's not just, it's the status differences and all the things, but once those things are sort of to break the ice on these things, people, all of the folks become more comfortable and need each other. Once again, having said that, it might take a little longer to do it the other way, but that works as well. And you have to work with whatever is going to work in your organization. So I would phrase it when you're talking to some of your colleagues about this, that there's an ideal way, but if they don't think politically that's a smart way to go or realistic, that's okay. Then we do a contingency and fall back on just within them. But one of the things that hopefully will come out of the plans for the future will be survey, interview, whatever it is, to have representatives or a representative speak about some of the common day-to-day issues, only because they could be what saves the day, because it could be that great policy and wonderful high-level implementation, but be a real issue to destroy the whole thing if it doesn't work on a micro level for the implementation from a TB champion's perspective, for example. So once again, I'm just letting you know we have many options. You let us know what's going to fly, and we'll work with it.
No, I agree.
Sorry, Rahul, I just want to add, the whole point of this is absolutely the reason we've chosen this methodology is that it's not about a fact-finding, independent, let's see what the problems are and break holes in it situation. And I think that actually, from what I hear from you, Rahul, there may stand to David, the team benefit from just understanding what empowerment evaluation is.
Yeah.
And the fact that it is the reason we're doing it, you need to own it, your team needs to own it. They need to feel that it's worth its time. They need to feel that it's worth the champions being involved. It's worth, actually, I would stretch it and ask you, why not even ask some TB patients to get information on it? Because it's about looking at that full continuum, not with this problem of what's right, what's wrong, but looking at it with what are the differences in the vision of each one along the way, and how are those not connecting?
Exactly. Exactly.
So, but Rahul, this is absolutely yours and you own it. So if you feel in any way, shape, or form, we need to change it, we need to maybe bring in survey information, we need to maybe, we'll do that. But you lead it. So you let us know what that is. Thank you.
Yeah. Right, the target. Let me add on Kachina's point. She had a really good insight into that, which is it's not, a lot of these things are not what's right or wrong as far as like a TB champion or a patient or a national person, et cetera. It's that you get different lenses, just like the glasses, on the same perspective. So it's not rarely is like, I work also with homeless folks up in Seattle, and it's not a matter of the homeless folks and the substance abuse folks being right or wrong with the healthcare providers. It's just that they provide very different perspectives on the same situation. And that's closer to what we're getting at here, because then we can see how something from an implementation perspective works or doesn't work, not because it's right or wrong or objectively, this is the way it should work, but subjectively, this is how people are perceiving the situation. And it's good to share those different perceptions so that we can get a clearer idea as to how to manage everyone's expectations, vision of what they want to get out of it, that sort of thing. So I like that Kachina's addition to it. When it's presented and discussed as bringing in different perspectives on it, it's not a matter of who's right or wrong by a long shot. It's just that we need to know everyone's different kind of role because it shapes their behavior. I like that. That's good.
So, David, just now that I'm thinking in both, talking to you and Kachina, after November, what is the overall broader plan? Like, you have these 2 workshops in November, and then we start this methodology, imbibing this methodology into our project activities, right? Yeah. And there, I think because I mean, because what that we're now discussing this in detail, is there a feasibility of you orienting what empowerment evaluation is to the national team, but
Yeah.
really get the weeds of it with the state and the district? I think that, which is where I think the TB champions and the TB survivors and people with TB, that can be a mixed heterogeneous group where this can come on. But with the leadership of managers, and I mean, for them, it needs convincing, right? And I know that convincing will be difficult because it is a learning by doing thing, and they will be doing the theory part of it. So I mean, but we have to get to that hurdle of at least presenting to them, and then to the actual workshop of where the people actually, what you're saying, the matter in terms of who they, who we bring into the table with respect to whose perspectives should matter. And I can totally say that December beginning, first week, we will have the first trainings of the CAF at the module 7, which is the specialized one, right?
Yeah.
And which is where I think the survey component of empowerment is very crucial. But before we do the survey component of the empowerment, it is crucial that the district strategists who are leading this 208 new TB survivors are on the same page about why we're doing this and what this methodology entails, and how it should benefit them in their meeting. So I was being asked, by the leadership, in terms of management perspectives, that is empowerment evaluation going to be a parallel meeting other than the regular project meetings that we have planned for the district strategists with the TB champions? And as much as what I understood from you talking, it should not be anything separate, but it's a way to meet. It's one of the processes and one of the methodologies in which you conduct your project meetings. And that is a practice that you need to uptake, and that practice can be you will only imbibe it when you see value in it. And that's where I think the district strategists, the state teams workshop is going to be much more crucial with respect to the weeds of it being, very well planned, rather than the November workshop, where we are talking about national. I mean, it's important in as much getting their confidence in doing that. But I think what you're saying is, I would rather prefer that group be a separate group where a few leadership members are invited, but the broader team which gets to speak and gets to contribute remains the district strategists. And some district strategists I know are also not so fluent in English, but that shouldn't be a problem. The district strategists, they're very smart people. And we will also definitely try and see which TB champions can be gotten into for that workshop. But that will not happen before December.
Yeah, that's okay. That's no problem. And keep in mind, I'm happy to help facilitate ones that some of the district folks do. They don't have to do it all by themselves. I can help them learn how to do this separate from or above and beyond what I'm contracted for the actual workshops. I'm happy to jump in there. Everyone's happy. I believe in stretching myself because I can see the opportunity for them to make sure they have a good handle on it. So if you want to organize an additional session of something, it wouldn't be a full-blown, gigantic, long thing. It could be a short introduction with some hands-on, so they have an idea of what the concept is. I'm happy to do it. And that might smooth things over. That might make it easier versus worrying about getting lost in translation from the national one that I do a big presentation, we do a facilitation. And then how is that translated by the district folks once they do it? Well, they might want assistance where I may help them facilitate some of it, either by helping them literally do it online, using Zoom or whatever, and Google Sheets, or helping to give them additional training, and they can do it on their own if they feel better that way. That's okay. I'm happy to work in the background, foreground, side by side to help move it.
I think that is the idea, David, that once the work gets started, every month, like once we have these meetings, or one or two every 2 months, whenever you are available, we would like to take one district strategist and do these meetings with you, at least from one state, so that if you need to cover all the 4 states, then this district strategist at least knows the way and can talk about it to the rest of the 2 district strategists.
Beautiful.
And I'm sure that by the end of the year, this methodology should get in mind. Yeah, sorry, Sandip and Kachina have to say something.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Coach. who's up? Sorry, Sandip.
No, just a quick point. I have been listening quite interesting points that Rahul is bringing in, and I think they are valid as well. David, just a suggestion. I think we didn't get a chance to speak to the senior leadership team at length. Maybe slightly longish discussion if we could organize before the workshop.
Hmm?
Listen to them and provide these options and explain it to them,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And say that you have these options. We can do a staggered one. We can do one where a mix of groups are available.
Yep.
The opportunities that each option will bring and what will be the challenges.
Good idea.
Listen to them so that they're able to express their concerns to us, right?
Yes.
Because we are talking to Rahul right now, and then Rahul goes back and talks to the senior team, right?
Yep.
And then probably they will have some other concerns coming in out of the discussion.
Yes.
Okay, so maybe that would be that few more meetings would be required. Instead of doing that, if we can have one discussion with the senior leadership team,
Mhm.
and where you explain what this is going to be and how this will be done, what is the purpose, and then the options that Rahul is proposing. If
Yep.
we take each option, how we can do it.
Yep.
Will that be helpful is what I'm asking.
I love it. What do you think, Rahul? I think that works for me. But Rahul, does that sound okay?
Sorry, yeah, I mean, Sandip, I totally agree. I mean, when I talk to the leadership, they would rely on me to understand that why we are doing what we are doing, right?
Okay.
So
Absolutely.
and that process-wise justification, I think I have it with my project director and our executive director. They two are the most committed and most interested. I think Mr. Subrat Mohanty and Dr. Ramya Anantkrishnan. They are most interested in this methodology, and they have given me quite some leeway to do this the way that it actually should have an impact, and it should be something that stands out with respect to project management and process evaluations, and at the end of the day answering the question that what did we do with the TB champions, which is what we are answerable to. Okay. So if we need sort of a management call with respect to the organization of this, the stepping down of this to the district teams and in the inclusion of the TB patients and champions as Kachina is proposing, I'm happy to schedule that sometime next week or whenever it works. But also let me just be aware of the fact, just to cautioning this group that, we need to come down from planning to doing very quickly, because we are also like racing against.
Yeah, good point, Rahul. Yes.
Yeah,
because I know
Kachina. Baseline.
No, because I know Kachina.
But Rahul, I just want to tell you something, is that I hear your pain, because quite frankly, I have had this at USAID as well, which is that people don't know what it is. They don't there's this kind of, part of it is a paradigm shift. Part of it is, yes, get down to doing it. And I think the largest paradigm shift will happen as people see it rolling out on the ground and being done. Yeah. And quite frankly, I just want to reiterate, we are all here, Rahul, to support you. So if you think it's a leadership meeting that I need, then we get you a leadership meeting. If you think it's an orientation that I want, we get you an orientation. If you think that, I think we should do all USAID and combine leadership, then we get you that. But like, really, quite frankly, you being the representative of REACH in this scenario are that epicenter, and we are meant to be the constellation stars around you. So, but you have to be the lead on it and tell us when you need what and we do need some kind of a Gantt that's telling us this is how we're plotting it out, this is where we're going, this is what we're doing. And that cannot be done solely by you, David. Definitely you have to give your inputs in it and be a part of creating that, please. But Rahul, please, for not a second think that we in any way, shape, or form want to, you will face struggles. Like, let me be absolutely frank. You will face struggles in executing it. You know, do we include TB patients, or how do we do it? Do we have language? Do we not? We all do. But the question I think really we need you to say is, all right, despite the struggles, these four people sitting on this call, 5 people with Amrita, are here to support me in helping me come over those roadblocks,
Yeah.
whatever they may be.
Yeah.
So just let us know, yeah?
Right.
Thank you, Kachina. Thanks for those words. It's inspiring, because I am, at least, you know, this is a lot of encouragement for me to know that there's someone has faced the same struggles, because you know that whenever something new is pitched, you know, it is not always a easy thing to sell to people. But I am convinced that this will produce results, and with my conviction, I will do my best. You can be sure of that. So, Sandeep, getting back to your point, next week should we do a leadership call with respect to getting the Gantt chart and seeing the project objectives, and then finally fixing the dates also, because dates is something that I've been struggling with respect to the team. And I think Kachina's proposal of having the USAID team and the Reach leadership team together is a brilliant one. Then we don't have to, you know, sort of repeat, because the lone team can also be then, you know, we can totally align to the overall outcomes that we are looking forward from the next layer of meeting, where the actual work gets done, the district strategists and state program managers. I think yeah, that should be the sequence of things. And starting January, we will have the actual meetings which David was talking about, where we will need your support in the actual one district strategist in one state doing the stuff.
Rahul, can we wait till January for a baseline?
Yeah. So the baseline for me, in the sense, is, so when you talk about a baseline, Kachina, are we talking about a baseline with respect to, see, once the leadership and the leadership meet happens and the first district strategist meet happens, we agree on the set of goals. We agree on the set of outputs and outcomes. We agree on, you know, what priority we are going to give to what, to report on the CAF report, which is the unit report that comes from district strategists, right? At the end of the month, they are going to update us where they are on that process of identifying gaps, innovating solutions, and implementing solutions. We have named that cycle that way, but on a day-to-day basis, as I said, in treatment unit, whatever happens, you have to qualitatively assess this gap and see how to find a solution. It's not just identifying gaps, because CTD was very clear in our meeting with CTD that, you know, we don't want to know the gaps. Tell us what you're doing about the gaps, or what you can do about the gaps. Just whether it is resource mobilization, whether it is stakeholder engagement, and that's the level of advocacy we need to bring these people up to very fast, which is where I think time is short. And when you talk about the baseline, for me, the baseline is this agreed set of outputs and outcomes that goes across logistics strategies and a set of TB champions, knowing that we are running with this. This might not be and that's the entire theme of empowerment evaluation. This might not be the right set of outputs and outcomes we go into, but once we have done it for a month, we know what better to refine and how better to refine it. And that's where the evaluation and the other review meetings come in with respect to this methodology.
Okay,
yeah,
sorry.
so
So you're thinking then we might have the empowerment evaluation session earlier, like in November, but what you're talking about is what might come out of the empowerment evaluation and other things. You then would help create a baseline that you'd formally be communicating. It wouldn't be have the workshop way back in January, which is kind of late. It'd be more of the empowerment evaluation would help establish and contribute to the baseline development that you want to submit. Is that right?
Yes, so the January first data point after the baseline.
Okay, so that's helpful. I see what you're saying. So in a sense, tell me if I've got this right from what you just said, Rahul, and also what Kachina was asking about. It sounds like sometime in November, we could actually have our empowerment evaluation workshop, mission, taking stock, planning for the future, the Google Sheets, that sort of thing. That would lead us to a lot of the things you're talking about of gaps, filling gaps, implementation, but not just the gaps. It's actually what are we doing? Do we actually have a plan for the future? As you're refining that between, say, November, December, easily by January, you'll have known what kind of worked and didn't work, or maybe how much longer it's going to take than you expected, but you'll have the preliminary part of it as soon as we do the workshop.
Absolutely, because
Okay.
now there is ongoing work on the field where data is already coming to us in what form, because there is a community immersion going on. There is some sort of quality assessment tools that we're rolling out on a trial basis. So there is some information that forms the baseline, but the data coming to us will not matter unless and until this group sits on that data and says, okay, these are the parameters which matter to us.
Okay.
And that's where the baseline comes in, right? These are the parameters where we are going to work on solutions in this particular geographies. And these are the stakeholders we're going to meet to make the solutions happen. And that's where this accountability gets closed, right?
Yes.
And it's simple to say that the cycle closes, but it's a lot of, again, struggles to get that actual solution in a TV unit under this kind of circumstances.
Yeah.
So what did not make those solutions happen can only be argued when we know what the solution is and what the gap it is catering to, which we have some sort of idea as a baseline.
Yeah.
But that baseline, I will not call it a baseline unless everyone agrees on that this baseline is what we are working on towards a solution.
Okay, this sounds good. I think I understand. Tell me if this makes sense, because I can see, for example, us doing the workshop, say, I don't know, early November or whatever, or mid-November, something like that. And we have the mission taking stock plan for the future. The plans for the future are really the preliminary kinds of baseline stuff you're talking about. From there, we're going to need to get our heads together, and folks from REACH in particular, and take the work plan and sort of align it with what we did with our empowerment evaluation plans for the future. And out of that, we will have what I want to do a tiny little workshop on, or a demonstration next time we meet, would be the evaluation dashboards.
Yes.
Then you'll be in a position, once we do that, then we have a Gantt chart. You don't have to go and develop a whole long thing at all, because it'll already be, here's what we want to do every quarter for the rest of the year. So, and what I'll do next time we meet, and I already briefly went over it last time, but too fast on the evaluation dashboards. I mostly focused on the 3 steps. I want to take about 15 minutes, 20 minutes maximum, just for all of us to go over the evaluation dashboard, because what comes out of the mission taking stock plan for the future is then, what are you going to do? Well, we're going to do this, 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 and this. And we're going to hopefully get this much done this quarter, this much the second, third, fourth. And I can model it out with a couple examples again. And that is what we would then work on after we do the workshop for sometime mid-November.
Right.
Those evaluation dashboards would be aligned with the work plan and what was done in the empowerment evaluation. And you have time to play and test around to see if it really made sense, and tweak it a little bit in case we made some mistakes as a group. And certainly December, January, you'd have a very formal one that's been refined. Kachina would be able to see one in November, because that'll be the preliminary one for your baseline based on the empowerment evaluation. But there's still a little work to do. And I know how to make the link between what you're saying of the existing work plan and what we're going to do in empowerment. And that'll be the evaluation dashboards, because there'll be very concrete, clear goals that are aligned with what you've already held accountable for in the work statement, work plan. But we'll do it. We're going to break it down, though, as best we can. We may make some mistakes, but we'll approximate what we think is reasonable per quarter to get through all these things, or at least the main ones. Does that sound? I can see clearly how to translate it. Sound okay?
Yeah. And when you say about the dashboard, I mean for each district, it will be a specific dashboard.
Yeah.
And these people, the district strategists, should figure it out with their team of TV champions.
Yes.
And I'm not going to be saying that that everything will happen by January and we'll start everything by January, but it will be a staggered thing. But at least we'll get it started with 3 or 4 district strategists, and then slowly people will start coming on board. Because the community internship is also something that is ongoing for 2 months. It will end at different periods.
Yeah,
and
okay.
whatever information we are having right now through electronic data collection, we have around, I think, potentially we should have around 2,000 or 3,000 data points of home visits.
Beautiful.
That's a across 95 TV units, right? It's regular data, it's MIS data. But if I can separate it by each district and I
Yes.
can tell them that this is what is happening in your district, now you tell us what are the gaps, or this is the gaps that we think. Do you agree with these gaps? And if these are the gaps, what are the solutions you agree with your team? And this is the baseline. Now you go work. Next month you come
Yes.
and tell us very well.
Precisely, and you're 100% correct. And on top of that, what I've done is then I find common denominators across the districts. There'll be 2 or 3 things that will be the same, and then we can say, here's what percentage we expect to have done by the end of the year in that category, even though we'll be sampling from different districts, and they'll be doing it different ways, but it'll be the same common denominator, some key things or activities that many will be idiosyncratic and different for each state. That's okay, but we'll find some common denominator ones that will be able to track at the same time, but we won't know them until we have them go through that part of the process as well. Beautiful. No, I think we're on the same page. This sounds beautiful. Does it sound okay to everybody else so far, what we're talking so far? I see, yep, because Catherine's going okay, and Kachina, make sense? Yep, okay, just checking.
Kachina, to your point about the form being translated to TB champions and patients, do you suggest we do that right now? Because the form was made with the intention that David gets to know the Allies team internally. But if you want just some TB champions and patients to share the form, we can definitely translate it and share that too.
Sure, as much as we can, because I mean, the more information, my experience is the more we can get, the better, from every different level and different kind of perspective, because otherwise we reinvent the wheel, having thought we had a good perspective on it, and we completely missed one component of some group that we hadn't thought about, and they can radically change the whole perspective because we missed something. So I don't aim at perfection or being a purist or anything like that, but I know the more inclusive I've been, the better off it's been for not having missing data, data points. Once again, does not have to be perfect. We don't have to have excellent, perfect representation, just some input so we don't miss some critical, larger perspective from one group or another. So if possible, if it can be translated, reasonably quickly, that would be helpful.
Sure.
Well, there's the translation is probably the easiest part. The actual getting the inputs may be a little bit more challenging, as to how we do it.
It's a lot of follow-up on the people who are responsible to meet these TB champions. It's just that.
Yeah. By the way, when I do a lot of work with my homeless folks and stuff up in Seattle, a lot of them I know do not answer a survey, but they'll listen. We'll have a conversation with them. It'll be an informal interview, and we'll transfer that into survey format. So there are many ways to get around it. I'm used to doing this all the time. Conceptually, it's all the same thing. We want all the different data points in there so we can see by group what the different perspectives are. We don't have to be 100% purist about everyone's got to fill out a survey per se. If we can get 20%, 30%, whatever percent to do that, that's that many fewer interviews that we have to do. And then the others we do interview, and then you push that into the forms, etc. So
just to give you an example of where these TB champions are coming from, I'm currently doing a stigma survey training from someone from Jashpur, which is a district in Chhattisgarh. And that person could not come to the trainings virtually for 2 days. And later we came to know that there was a 48-hour power cut in his district, or in the blocks in which he belongs. So he couldn't charge his phone. So we were thinking internet issues, but internet issues is not the case. It's just that there was no power for him to charge the phone.
I run the same thing when I'm in Ethiopia, and no one's responding. And it's like, oh, there's no electricity that day, of course. It's like, because it's hydroelectricity. So if it's not, raining or snow, whatever, there's nothing. So yeah, I understand. It's not that they're upset or whatever. It's just the practical realities of it. So yeah.
So Rahul, my suggestion on the form is, if you're going to ask it, I think it's fantastic. It's gorgeous to say, like, what are your hopes and fears? Quite frankly, that's what you're asking in this form of this process. And it makes it much more inclusive when people have had their voices spoken to or heard. And what I think you may want to just do is just do it in English with your teams. And maybe a district strategist will say, hey, could I ask this of you'll find those few that are really gung-ho about wanting to take it further out, and ask the district TV champions or even patients, and maybe you sort of enlist them, find that kind of crew of 3 or 4 who really are supportive of kind of like, they're like, oh, this is kind of cool, and bring them in and get it. And if you get the information at a later stage, that's fine too, right?
True. Yeah, but I see your point. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, because you yourself, quite frankly, are a very busy man. There's no way you yourself can do it. So there's no expectation of you yourself to do it either. If you need the extra help, that's one way to do it. Is that I'm sure that the Swasti team can also provide you help with the translation piece of it, or the CMS team would be able to do that if you required. But I think it's much better to find the district strategists who are really keen to be a part of this. And just not everybody, those 2 or 3 shining stars, bring them in, get them involved with it to help you roll it out.
Yeah, I can totally see the Vellore district strategist, its language is Tamil. He will be totally up for this. So I know what you're saying. I know those faces who will be taking this forward. So as next steps, David, before there's a planning call with the leadership with respect to what we discussed right now and how this baseline is going to work out, because I know that in the next monthly meeting, there will be Kachina, Amrita will be asking us for a plan for the baseline. Sure. And I just want to be clear across the board with respect to what we discussed right now. Yep. As being the baseline, I might have to write it down as a concept note or as a process note. Sure. So what the baseline would entail for this particular piece of work. Yep. But before that, before I get into that piece of writing, I really want the leadership team and Kachina and Amrita to be in that call to understand what the baseline entails and whether we are expecting the same, our expectations are matched with respect to what a baseline would look like in this project and how we are going to go ahead with a monthly basis, with respect to the empowerment evaluation piece.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, I think that's great. That way there are no surprises. We're all on the same page and have the same expectations. And that way we meet short-term goals to make sure we have some baseline information right away, like November, using the empowerment evaluation, but not having unrealistic expectations that that's just all of it. In fact, there's a process of taking that, aligning it with your work plan, with evaluation dashboards, and clearly by December, January, February, you'll have a crystallized version, but Kachina will have stuff earlier than that because it'll be November, will be very clear preliminary indicators in this regard. Is that not, I think that'll work very well. Does that make sense, Kachina, also? Okay, cool. I think we're on the same page. And that's all, I think, very realistic, because we're going to get a lot out of the exercise. It'll really move things along very fast versus taking 6 to 12 months to get to that point. We can do it in a very short period of time. But like you're saying, that doesn't answer all of it. We get together again to help align this with existing work plans, so that nobody's saying, oh, we're just doing something pie in the sky, not related to what we're accountable for. But we're also making sure that it's very practical on a district level in particular. What specifically are you going to do, and how many of these things are going to do each quarter for a year to get to that larger goal? So there is a next translation, as it were, issue, not language, but translation for, here's what we said we're going to do, here's what it looks like in implementation actions. Beautiful, beautiful. This is sounding good. I think this is a great conversation we're having. Glad we recorded it too, so I can go back and listen to make sure we can follow through on these. So at our next meeting then, tell me, what would you like to do? I'll go over the dashboards for sure, a brief presentation on it. You want to let us know, I guess, where things are at that point for tentative dates, I suppose, at that point for workshop or any introductory kind of activities. Sound reasonable?
Sure.
Okay.
Can we have a Gantt, please? I'm really sorry. I may be the archaic program manager that is just like, okay, well, what are we doing when, and how does it flow out to the end point?
Yeah.
So anything like that would be really helpful for me to get a hold on it.
Yeah,
a little better.
Rahul, do you mind if I take just a little stab at that end? So I can send it to you, to everyone. What I would say, you'll know the detail, but from my perspective, it'd be November would be, just to make sure we're on the same page, and you give me the dates, but I'd say, sometime early or mid
You can do it
November.
also. I mean, if it's just weekly, you can do it like, just week basis also, right? So that on the timings, if you don't know the dates, exact dates.
Okay, yeah, I'm with you. Great. Then I was all I'm gonna write down for the Gantt chart will be that we're gonna have the evaluation workshop in November. Then we're gonna have basically I'll put November, December is when we're gonna go and get and develop a lot of the evaluation dashboards. And then in January, I'll put February. We'll have, and by the way, that'll be a refined baseline. I'll put in parentheses, the preliminary baseline would be what comes out of empowerment evaluation at the end of, say, November. That would be the preliminary one because we have to still merge that with the evaluation dashboards and the work plan. Then the only thing that we put after that is the quarterly dashboards, and then we won't know what they are until we create them. But we do know that on a quarterly basis, we'll have an expectation of making progress towards the annual goal. We won't know what that is until we have the actual evaluation dashboard done with the district folks, and then we can turn that into common denominators we expect. But go ahead, Kachina, what were you going to say?
So I was just going to say, I think we're like, one is kind of that higher level, but when I'm talking about sort of from a program management perspective, I literally mean like, instead of the evaluation or just the meeting, I mean, who's doing the prep for the meeting, who's setting it. I mean, I feel like there's going to be a lot of, seeking information, putting out a survey, getting the results of the survey, processing the survey. And I think, David, I personally think that actually the CMS team is probably best positioned to set that up and take your inputs. You can take the first jab, then they kind of put in the different steps, the sub steps that have to happen to see that happen. So that we know, okay, look, it took us 2 weeks to get the information rather than 1 week. And so the entire thing is moved forward, because otherwise we're just going to look at these kind of broad, macro things. But when you especially have multi-stakeholder engagements like we do right now in this particular setup, it's going to be really important to have that really clearly, crisply articulated. It'll also help the CMS team and the SWASI team to know what the expectation is of them. Okay, so that, where their interjections are, where there is, and, in each of those Gantt points, maybe even have one person who's responsible or what the deliverable is from that would be really helpful.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, that should definitely be a CSM team to develop that. What I'll do is I'm going to just send out the broad strokes part. I'm going to send out, here's what we expect to do November, December, as far as we call it evaluation workshop, when to work on plans for evaluation dashboards, merge that with aligning it with the work plan, and then quarterly, updates, etc. That's all I'm going to do. And then the CSM team can have the actual specific Gantt chart that you're looking for, because they'll know better than I will, of course, who will be assigned to what to follow up on each component. I know what you're talking about. But go ahead.
Rahul, does that work for you? Does that make your life a little easier?
Definitely. I mean, then it will be easier for me to plan and reach out to the internal team and set the.
And align it with like your district strategy meetings that are happening. They happen every month or every quarter. So that we're in line with the reach. So you as much need to kind of contribute to that calendar.
And also, Kachina and Sandip, I think once we start the process of this monthly meetings and David coming and giving in inputs and handholding some of these meetings to make them refined in terms of process, it will be very important for me if somebody can be a third pair of eye and document the findings of these meetings, so that there is some sort of documentation going ahead with respect to the process, the outcome, and the intent of that intervention that we are doing externally in those meetings. Because really what we are doing is we're imposing a structure to those meetings, and how well that structure works can only be seen as a process of documentation. So Sandip, if that support comes from your team, I think that would be great, going ahead from January to March, but as you can see for 3 months, and then see how that helps us with respect to, because it's also internally, we have to question ourselves that whether we are being useful to the district strategists with this methodology after all.
Absolutely, Rahul. Absolutely. I agree with what Kachina suggested, Rahul. David also suggested, and what you are asking, Rahul. We have been documenting it, but we will streamline it when we go further, because I think the richness of the process, why we arrived at certain conclusion, I think will have rich learning for all of us. So
Mhm.
that we will definitely do. And I agree with Kashina that the detailed planning, we will facilitate that, Rahul, but we would need a lot of inputs from you, because the internal requirements you can only say, right? But we'll then work closely with you to set it up, right? So that will also help you, free you up from the management of the evaluation, and then focus on the actual evaluation work itself. Yeah.
The operations of it. Yeah. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So to operationalize that, as I said, I'll just send out a quick email later, either tonight or tomorrow. And it's just very brief. It's just highlights so you'll keep in your mind when you're doing the detail planning, just some of the basic steps, the evaluation workshop, the evaluation dashboards, merging it, or aligning it with a work plan, and then quarterly kind of updates. That's all right. And Sandip then can help work with you on actually giving what Kachina's talking about, which is the detailed Gantt chart. That's beautiful. Does that sound okay to everybody?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
sounds
Just
good.
make sure we're on the same page. Okay, beautiful. This is a good meeting. So hope everyone was okay with taking a little longer, but this is really valuable. Rahul, does feel good? Okay, feels all right.
Yeah.
Okay,
A lot more clarity as I talk to you guys. Now my next job is to go and talk to the team internally
I know.
and
I know. Well, everything's a challenge. It's all one step at a time. But we're seriously, like Kachina mentioned, we're all here to make this possible, to help support you on making this possible. We're all working together and learning how to make sure it's implemented. Every group is different. We all have different things we're weighing and balancing. So we're in there for you.
Thank you so much, David. Thanks, Kachina. Thanks.
All
Thanks,
right.
Catherine.
Everybody else okay? You want to call it a close for the meeting or anything else that we missed? Think we're okay?
No, David, just that we really want you to be presenting to USAID and now the REACH leadership. So the sooner that can happen, I think we'll get a lot more buy-in from that.
I'm open for it. We'll just set up some dates and start making it happen.
Should I just go ahead and set up a date?
Set up some dates, because I can do one of two things. We can, no question about it. Find out what's some good dates for it, because here's what we do. If it ends up, if we can do it after the actual workshop, I can highlight different aspects of the workshop, not all of it, so it won't be so overwhelming, to show them highlights. And that would be a nice way to do some presentation about the process. It won't be the long version of what I do. There'll be highlights about empowerment evaluation, some steps, and here are some examples of what we're really doing right now that will then lead to these kinds of outcomes, desired outcomes. Happy to do that. If we can do it just after the meeting, it's better. Before might be soon, number one, too early to schedule, but also it wouldn't have the same substance as having it after we have some little clips and computer screen snapshots from the actual workshop, if possible.
Okay, is that your feeling too, Rahul? Does that work for you better with the REACH team leadership?
The REACH team leadership, you want the content to be frozen before?
No, my question is, are you okay with it being done after the main meeting, or you want to do it before the main meeting, the orientation on evaluation?
Before.
Yeah, the orientation would be before. I thought you were talking about the larger audience in USAID.
That is what I'm talking about. They all want an orientation. They all want to understand what exactly is this work that you're doing.
Anyone's, yeah, the ones that we were talking about earlier, like Rahul was saying, definitely right as soon as possible, because I'm happy to jump in and give a nice overview of what it's about, not too long, but key points about what it's about, no problem. What I was talking about is that I think we also need to have, I was thinking of what you mentioned the last time we met, the larger USAID audience that really needs us to learn about what we're doing. They're not directly involved in necessarily even the REACH project, but want to learn, just hopefully get them exposed to what's going on, would be based on something that we've done some initial workshop and some activity on. So, so two different audiences, I guess. One's the senior leadership for Rahul, that's sooner than later. The other one that's a much broader group that's not directly involved, but you mentioned how we need to sort of get their consciousness going as well and become aware. That's if we have some substance, like an example of a workshop that we can take highlights of, that'll be more persuasive.
Great. I
Good.
can wait.
But,
No
but,
problem.
but for the early one, Rahul, yeah, but Rahul, for the one before, we'll find a date and let me know and we'll work it out. I'm happy to do what needed to do before the prep, but we just want to differentiate between what you're talking about, the senior leadership for yours.
Yes, yes.
And then at the same time, one of the reasons we're doing these tapings and pictures and everything else is that we want to expose the large group outside of Reach to also know about some of this.
Correct.
Cool.
So then you can use that example for the larger USA.
Exactly. Exactly. You got it. And we don't have to give away anything proprietary or confidential, just examples of highlights of how the process works. Cool.
I mean, it's proprietary for USA, no longer for us.
Good point. That's a good point, isn't it? But yeah, but no, it should be that way. We're going to deal with. So I want to keep in mind for the whole project that you're going to have your leadership. Happy to make sure we have them prepped and ready, and whatever they need to know, we're happy to jump in. But we also want to think about when we're recording this or taking computer screen snapshots or social media, we need to, part of the idea is to expose other folks, particularly within the larger umbrella of USAID and even outside, about how this works. And then they might think about using it for some of their work as well. You know, it's mostly just, our job is to help disseminate and share what we're learning. Beautiful.
Sure. So I will come back with a date for the Reach senior leadership with you. I think by the end of this Tuesday, by the end of this week, I'm going to come back, and it's going to be first week of November, most probably, because October, I don't see it happening. We have certain trainings lined up.
Sure.
And there will be a minimum of 20 people from the Reach team, both Chennai and Delhi. And 4 of them will be from the states, but state teams, state managers, program managers are the bosses of the district strategists.
Okay.
So that's the level we are talking about out here, and the national team, of course.
Yeah.
And for that, I think if you need any content, I can give you the basic, outputs and outcomes that we're committed to in the work plan, and break it down to the actuals of what the district strategists are going to be doing. Right. Because I also think somewhere the national team is struggling to, understand what the QOC and QoS would look like, because it's such a, and not that I have the best understanding, but it's a flexible thing, and the idea that it should evolve is something that some people are not comfortable with, right? Because they want something structured. These are the indicator 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's go and report on it. They cannot say that indicator 1 can change to indicator 1A.
Right. I know.
That's the idea, right?
Yeah.
So that is where I think they are also they're getting there slowly. So I'm going to share that and work with you with respect to the planning of this first workshop with the Reach.
Beautiful. Sounds
Rahul,
great.
quick question. Are you going to include Amrita in your senior leadership meeting, or would you prefer to?
Both of you.
I think that would be good, yeah?
Both of you should come here.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Beautiful. And then, so Kachina, not a rush, but when you're thinking about the larger USAID audience, just keep me posted on what you think is a reasonable schedule for that. I'm happy to do presentations for that as well, depending on what you find is a reasonable schedule. Primarily, that would be one after the workshop.
1 hour? Is that a good amount of time?
Yeah, an hour, whatever people can handle. I've done short ones, I've done long ones, whatever. An hour sounds reasonable because it leaves it some time for me to do presentation and open for question and answer about anything someone's not sure or uncomfortable about. Yeah, happy to do it. And they don't have to be directly related to Reach. It's just if you think that they would be benefit from knowing about some of this project, just let me know and we'll do it.
Okay.
Yeah. I just want to think, I like to think of both levels at the same time. The senior level for what Rahul has to take care of, that can be, of course, before, because that's getting them ready and acclimated to this idea. But then you mentioned the last time, and I think you're right in the money, that we also want to make sure that other folks outside of Reach within USAID that might be interested in the concept, just to hear a little bit more about it. So no mad rush on that, but I just want to put that on the radar screen so we're dealing with both levels at the same time.
My challenge is how do we restrict it actually? Because actually, I think there's people in Washington that also want to now know about this through local works and things like that. So it's like, how do you actually, you know, because if you get 100 people on it, I mean, then I can just watch your webinar. I don't need to actually have you talking. So I really need to keep it finite in its sort of, so that's our challenge. But we'll get to you on that. An hour long, we'll schedule something.
Yeah, and the trick for that one, by the way, is people that you think are eager or philosophically inclined. They don't have to be perfectly representative, and they don't have to be just the most senior level. People you think that are already doing work that's related, but they don't have a systematic way of going about it, that might be eager. Those people are probably the ones I would look for and get a sample of those folks from a cross cut of different agency departments and units within USAID and invite them. It's mostly go for where there's some energy and they're interested. We're not trying to persuade folks who are completely disengaged and authoritarian and don't want to have some sort of empowerment or participation. Let them come along slower.
Got it. I'll let you know.
Okay. Anyway, I just want to make sure we keep all levels going at the same time. This is beautiful. All right. Well, thanks everybody. And thank Rahul in particular. Thanks for the detail. Really helpful. I really appreciate it. And Kachina, thanks for keeping us focused on the Gantt part that you're going to need. That way, Sandip can just work with Rahul to make sure you have that kind of detail too. Beautiful.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Take care, huh?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have
Bye-bye.
a good weekend.